Okay, why don't I get started? We are on lecture 9, and we're going to wrap up the discussion of geography, health, and development, this block of the course today, and perhaps at the end of the course start discussing the economics of HIV/AIDS. But if not today, then we'll start that on Thursday. Problem set 1 is being graded, and I'm told it'll be graded in the next few days, so hopefully by the end of the week. Any questions before I get started? Great. So we ended up last time on this slide. Remember, we've been discussing this school deworming program in Kenya, and we're trying to figure out what the impact of the program is. So far, we showed that there were impacts on children's health as measured by worm infections, and we also showed that there were these externality effects, meaning even the people who weren't treated themselves seemed to benefit in terms of better health. The other set of outcomes to look at are educational outcomes. So we started looking at what I'm calling school participation here, and school participation is a combination of school enrollment and attendance. So kids who either drop out of school or are absent on the day of one of these unannounced checks are non-participants, and those who are physically there are participants. And we went through these numbers last time, and what comes through is in each of these different age groups, the younger kids, the older kids, you see a pronounced increase in school participation in the schools that got the deworming drugs. Very large effects, and the average gain is about 7 percentage points, which is statistically significant at 99% confidence. Very large effects, and this reduces school absenteeism by about a quarter. So, school absenteeism is about 25% if you look at average attendance in groups 2 and 3, appropriately weighted by the number of kids in each of those groups. So this very simple intervention that's very cheap had a really big impact on school attendance. That's one of the, or school participation. That's one of the kind of main findings of this study. And that's exciting because school participation is a big deal, boosting school enrollment is a big deal, keeping kids from dropping out is a big deal, and to the extent that tropical disease and poor health are a major determinant of school dropouts and school absenteeism, then maybe by tackling the school health problem, but tackling the child health problem, we can also improve their schooling. That's the reason why this connection between health investment and schooling is so important. Maybe other tropical diseases beyond deworming have similar maybe treating them has similar impacts. Maybe if you could treat malaria or treat typhoid or treat a range of other conditions, you might also have benefits. So we're basically getting some insight into the link between poor health and schooling here that we didn't have before. So school participation is one outcome that we care about. Another outcome that we care about is test scores. And in the original project proposals, and when we were conceiving of this project, we were really interested in both of these, getting kids in school and trying to see if they would learn more when they were in school. So the way school test scores, academic test scores, were measured were through standardized exams. The Kenyan government has a very elaborate system of standardized exams in each grade. And in primary school and elementary school, these exams are very important because they build up towards the goal of taking the grade 8 exam, or what's called standard 8 exam. And you have to do well on that exam in order to get into high school, to get into secondary school. So students take these exams very seriously, and they're sort of standard exams that we can draw on. So the standard 8 exam is the big deal, but between standards 3 and 8, kids take practice exams that are called mock exams, and the schools administer them really to get the kids used to taking these tests and learning the material so that they can do well when they get to grade 8. So why might deworming affect test scores? Can people think of some reasons why this health treatment might improve their test scores? Sort of specific reasons, specific channels, yeah. Exactly, we just showed that they're in school more. So if we go back to the previous slide, if I'm in school 80% of the time instead of 70% of the time, that may help me learn. Those extra days when I'm in school, I may actually, hopefully learn something. If any given school year has about 180 days, then 10% of those 180 school days is about 18 days in school. So these kids are in school more. They should hopefully learn more. Yeah. Yeah, so if they're healthier and their nutrition's better, they may be able to retain more information, they may be able to learn more. So they may actually learn more per unit of time that they study. So not only are they spending more time in class, but they're gaining more per unit of time that they study. Yeah. Yeah, so they may actually be there for the mock exam, and that allows them to practice taking tests. So that could be another reason. Yeah. If you're sick and you're tired and you're weak, you can study. So not only will they do better in school, they should be able to study more at home. Okay. So you guys have mentioned these: increased time in school, greater efficiency of learning while in school, and we mentioned a couple of other ones as well: more homework, etc. Okay. So we looked at the test scores. We compared the treatment schools to the control schools on these standard test scores, and we found zero effect. There was no gain in academic test scores. Now, you guys have just told me at least 4 or 5 really good reasons why we should expect to see those gains. Instead, we find pretty precisely estimated zero effect. So the point estimates there are minus 0.03, positive 0.01, but basically just zero effect. The test scores in the treatment group and the control group are the same. Why might that happen? Can now we reverse course? Now we were getting a lot of momentum and excitement around these test scores. Why might deworming or this program not raise test scores? What are some things, Radhika? Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So, to the extent that these kids, say some of the kids were in grade 4, grade 5, how they do on the test is going to reflect everything they've learned up till then. I just said attendance was, 10% better on average, 7% better attendance. So 7% out of 180 days is, a dozen days. Now that's a dozen more days in school, but maybe they've been in school 5 years already or 6 years already. And so as a sort of percentage of their overall lifetime school attendance, maybe it's too small to make a difference. That's another view, yeah. Yeah, even if the kids are in school more, if the quality of teaching isn't very good, if the teachers don't show up. Actually, teacher absenteeism is a big problem in Kenyan primary schools. Teachers are absent 20% of the days. We also did random unannounced days to get teacher attendance. 1 out of 5 times, teachers don't show up. So if the teachers aren't there, maybe it doesn't make a difference if the kids are going to school more. Yeah. Yeah, maybe the standardized tests are only picking up certain things. Maybe when the kids are healthier and more energetic, they're doing well, but in dimensions that aren't picked up on the test. That's one possibility. That said, to defend the test, some of them are just basic arithmetic and basic reading skills that you'd really hope people would get. So I think, but the general point is maybe the tests aren't measuring what we want. Yeah. I'll mention, when I talk about the long-run follow-ups, I'll mention some results in a couple minutes. These are kind of short-run. I mean, that was kind of alluded to. These are sort of short-run effects. So over the medium to long run, we're going to have some mixed positive effects, but not super strong in any case, but not really zeros, yeah. So that's a great point. We just said before, now the kid is healthy, they don't have a fever at home, and now the question is, what are they going to do at that time? Maybe now that they're not sick at home, their mother will say, go get some water. Go walk half an hour and get some water. You're not sick anymore. Go get some water. Maybe they would have studied more if they were like, hey, Mom, I'm kind of sick here. I'm going to do my homework. And now that they're energetic and they're feeling better, maybe they have to do other things at home. So it kind of depends on the relative return to different activities. Did you ever hear that? I'll show you some 10-year follow-up data a little bit later. But for now, we're just talking about the short run. Okay, so you guys have made a lot of good points. Here are a couple of points. You guys have made some of these. We talked about maybe the quality of the classroom instruction not being good. Maybe that you just don't learn that much every day. The time lag issue. Maybe this is too short run to see anything. Maybe we need more time to see these gains. Although, again, in defense of the design here, we had 2 years of data. So 2 years is a decent amount of time. One issue you guys haven't mentioned has to do with school attendance, what I'm calling here increased congestion in the classroom. So basically, since kids are attending school more, the pupil-to-teacher ratio has effectively gone up. So instead of having, on a given day, 35 kids in the classroom, now maybe there's 40 kids in the classroom, something like that. And that isn't the end of the world, but there is evidence that kids learn less, young kids learn less in larger classrooms. So slightly offsetting the gain to every individual from being healthier is now more kids are in school. So that's one possibility. Another thing to keep in mind that we try to deal with, but maybe only imperfectly, is now that school attendance goes up, a higher fraction of kids in the treatment schools actually take the test because they're still enrolled in school at the end of the year. So if you think that marginal kid who might have dropped out in the absence of the dewarding program is now taking the test in the treatment school, but that same kind of weak student probably dropped out in the control school, that's also going to push down the average test score. So we try to account for that, but we can only do it imperfectly. But that combination of congestion effects and then what, again, economists would call selection effects, meaning different types of people are taking the test in the treatment school and the control school, both of those things would be kind of pushing down test scores in the treatment schools, average test scores. Okay. Any other explanations beyond the ones you guys have said? What can you think of for this surprising result? Maybe test scores, one thing that's related to what you guys were saying was a little bit different is test scores pick up what you learn in class. They also pick up what you learn at home. They pick up your innate ability. They pick up, people with certain personalities are better test takers. So there's some aspect of your test performance that's going to be hard to change overnight, like your innate ability or your sort of home environment or those kinds of things. So we're only kind of affecting a slice of what might affect test scores. Martin? Yeah. Yeah, they started with worst grades. We try to control for that in the regression as a control variable. So hopefully we've accounted for some of those differences. But that's debatable. Yeah, so in the education literature, there's a debate about sort of if you target investments to the worst performers or the strong performers, who's going to gain more? And different models will predict different things. To some extent, the weakest kids might gain the most. They sort of have the most to potentially gain. But at the same time, you might think among these worst performers, they're already so far behind that additional investment will be kind of squandered. So, yeah. Yeah, so another possibility is they just don't take it too seriously. And that's something we can't entirely rule out. We didn't incentivize them on these tests. We didn't say, hey, we're going to pay you if you do well on these tests. I'll talk about a project in like 2 weeks where we did pay people to do well on tests. So it makes a big difference if you pay people to do well on tests. That's not why you guys are here. You're doing it for the love of learning, obviously. But, yeah. Exactly. So in the treatment group, there are more tests administered than in the control. And that precisely because fewer kids have dropped out. So that could potentially explain some of this sort of like unexpectedly, not that spectacular test performance in the treatment school. That's certainly a possibility. Now, we did try to deal with it. Once we started getting the test score data in 1998, we started realizing this was a problem. So one thing that we did is we sent teams of our surveyors to the homes of kids that had dropped out in treatment and control schools to basically try to fill in the distribution, meaning try to get test scores even from the dropouts. So we administered hundreds of dropout tests. But even doing that, there's still a little bit of an imbalance between treatment and control. But we did try to deal with that problem as best we could. So the fieldwork here took a lot of kind of time and effort. But that wasn't a problem we could completely solve. Okay, so what have we found out so far about deworming? Health improves for people who take the drugs and others. School participation improves a lot. And test scores sort of stay flat. They don't get worse. They're just basically a zero effect. So everything taken together looks like this is pretty good. Health is better. Kids are going to school more. We think that's good. And test scores weren't hurt at least. So on that, this seems like it's probably productive. And I'll get into the cost-benefit calculations. The first side of that is the cost. The cost of this program in Kenya, when we could sort of back out the cost as best we could estimate them in this real program, was about $1.50 per kid, $1.46 per kid at this time. Inflation adjusted, this is closer to $2 per kid now. So that's pretty cheap. Costs now are much lower. Even at the time, larger scale programs that weren't in 75 schools but were in hundreds of schools were cheaper. They were like 50 cents per kid. And it kind of makes sense. You have a staff that organizes a program. Once you've organized it, set up the systems, bought the drugs in bulk, going to extra schools is pretty cheap. That extra day of distributing the drugs is cheap relative to the setup and the purchasing and whatnot. Recent programs are even cheaper because the drugs are just the generic versions of these drugs are just so cheap right now. So in the nationwide Kenyan program that I'm going to talk about soon, drug costs a few years ago were only 36 cents per kid. So now the costs are getting just really, really low. Deworming, mass deworming is incredibly cheap. For the cost of your latte, you can deworm 10 kids for a year. And that's 7% attendance. You can increase schooling by almost a year for the cost of your latte on average. Unless you get a soy latte. That's a little more. Then you get up to that full year. In terms of our cost, the $1.46, one thing to keep in mind is about a third of that was health education. So when I described the program to you guys last week, I mentioned this program gave out drugs, but also had health education. And the health education taught kids, wear sandals, wear flip-flops, wear shoes so you don't step on hookworm eggs. Wash your hands after you use the toilet. Wash your hands before you eat so you don't ingest the worm larvae. Don't swim in Lake Victoria. Don't swim in fresh water. Just limit contact there. And this cost is basically the cost of the staff that went school to school, class to class, and told them these messages with flip charts and sort of standard government material. There's sort of standard health education material on this stuff. So that costs quite a bit. Without that cost, the cost of the program is less, right? I mean, just the drugs alone, we're about $1, let's say. What's interesting, and I'm not going to show you the table on this, when we go and compare treatment and control school kids on these behaviors, so for instance, on the day of follow-up surveys, we just observe, are they wearing shoes or sandals or slippers, something to cover the soles of their feet, yes or no? The surveyors will look at their hands, and on a scale of 1 to 5, see how clean their hands are. So just like a random check to see, are their hands dirty or not? And then third, they're asked, in the last week, how many days did you swim in Lake Victoria? And the average is like 2 to 3. None of those changed between treatment and control schools. So it doesn't seem like health behaviors are driving the gains that I told you. It really feels like it was the drugs. Now, that doesn't mean health behaviors wouldn't work. They would. If people change hygiene and sanitation behaviors, they get less worm infections, they get healthier. It's not as easy to change health behaviors as it is to give someone a pill in the short to medium run. So to have sort of short to medium run impact, the drugs are just really easy, cheap, and effective. Changing health behavior is a little bit harder, and at least the kind of standard government health education approach, sending government public health nurses into the schools, et cetera, didn't change behavior very much. That's why don't health behaviors change? I think there's a broader question in general in health economics that in general people do lots of things that are unhealthy for them. People smoke, people don't get checkups, people don't floss their teeth. How many people floss their teeth twice yesterday? You're supposed to twice. Right there. Let's see the smile. Let's see the pearly whites. You ran out of floss. See, that's what I'm saying. These guys ran out of shoes. But basically, it's hard to change health behavior. There's a lot of things we do. The most extreme version of that in the U.S. public health context, of course, is the obesity epidemic, where there's sort of behaviors people could take, eating less, exercising more, that would just have profound implications for their health in the long run, and yet 50% of Americans are overweight or something like that. So the issue that people don't change health behaviors isn't sort of confined to Kenyan kids. It's certainly an issue for them, but it's a global issue around health behavior. So. But yeah, there's, maybe the kids weren't paying attention that day. Maybe there is one explanation that people sometimes give. I'm not sure if anybody can think of it in how the health education and the drugs may kind of interfere with each other. Can anybody kind of brainstorm an answer to that question? Why didn't health behaviors change that link the two? Exactly. So one possibility is I knew I was getting the drugs. Maybe we're really underselling health education. Health education specialists have given us that answer. We can't rule that out, which is to say I totally feel invincible now because I've taken the drugs. I know the worms are in my body. I'm going to go swim in Lake Victoria as much as I want. And so we see no difference in behavior, but maybe there's sort of counteracting effects. Like maybe some people reduce bad behaviors and other people increase them and kind of cancel that. We can't rule that out. So that's one possibility. We did try to deal with that by looking at these older girls that I talked about before that didn't get the drugs because of the program rules to see if their behaviors changed. They wouldn't feel that same kind of invincibility, but their behaviors don't change either. So it kind of feels like nobody's behavior changed in the treatment schools. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if anything, the conventional wisdom in the research world would be the phenomenon you're talking about, which is now I'm aware of the issues, would push people towards over-reporting good behavior. So it's what might be called social desirability bias. Let me write that down. Which is to say, now that you told me I shouldn't be swimming in Lake Victoria, I say, oh, I don't swim in Lake Victoria anymore. I haven't been there in weeks. Don't know where it is even. Forgot about it. Because I know that's the right thing to say. But we find zero impact despite that. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. For the shoes, there's the issue of buying them now. Most of the kids wearing shoes, and I'm calling shoes here, are really like flip-flops. They're sort of locally made flip-flops made of old tires, made of old rubber, et cetera. There are a lot of people that are very cheap, so most people could afford them, but some people couldn't. The clean hands, you would need to have access to clean water. So again, that may be out of their control. The contact with Lake Victoria, maybe I go there to go fishing, I want to get food. So there's a lot of other constraints that might explain the lack of changing behavior. That it's not as trivial as flossing your teeth. We can all floss our teeth, unless you run out, obviously, of the floss. That's the obvious explanation. But okay, so this is the behavioral side. What I want to do is talk about the long-run effects. So you guys have asked about this, and talk through how we think of these gains. So imagine kids' health improves, so they go to school more. And maybe they also have some better adult health. So if you're better nourished and healthier as a kid, there's evidence from various settings that affects you in the long run. Kids who have a lot of health problems in their childhood often have persistent health problems later on. So kids are healthier, they go to school more, maybe they're also healthier as adults, and that could affect their labor market outcomes, meaning how productive they are. We all know that there's a very strong relationship in every country between more schooling and higher earnings. That's just an incredibly strong relationship. So we would expect that these kids are in school more, and if they're healthier, for them to be more productive. And the question is, how big is that effect? Can we kind of detect that effect? And so what we did is we went back 10 years later to measure it. The other thing I want to mention is the possibility that being healthier and more educated doesn't just make you more productive at what you were doing, but maybe it just shifts the nature of your job. So if I got more schooling and I'm healthier, maybe that makes me more ambitious. Maybe it changes my aspirations. I feel like I'm productive. I can do this. I'm not sort of brought down by my poor health or my lack of skill. So that's another thing we investigate. So what we did is did a follow-up survey about 10 years later, and we have a working paper version of these results. It isn't on your reader, it's on my website. Compare kids from the different groups of schools to each other. And for simplicity, the results I'm going to show you are going to group 1 and 2 schools together and call them treatment. Remember, group 1 started getting treatment in 1998. Group 2 started getting treatment in 1999. Group 3 started getting treatment in 2001. So what that means is group 1 and 2 schools got 2 to 3 more years